Welcome to JLM University. My name is Alex, and in today's video I'm going to be teaching you how to replace the titanium shaft on your power pole move trolling motor. These steps are universal and will cover both models, the PV and the ZR trolling motor. For a list of recommended tools, please see the description below. And of course, make sure before working on your power pole move, you always turn the power to the motor off before doing any repairs. Now that the power has been disconnected, we're going to use our 9/16 ratchet and remove the prop. Once you have it broken free with your 9/16, go ahead and take your finger and completely remove the prop. Alright, now that you have the prop nut out, be careful when you pull this off, as there is a pin that's going to fall out. So make sure you catch that. If the pin is still in place, simply remove it by hand. The next step, we're going to take our number 2 Phillips screwdriver and remove the 4 screws that hold the rear cap on the motor. Now use your hand to pry the nose cone away from the motor housing. Now with the nose cone separated, if you are working on a transducer model, go ahead and disconnect the transducer cable. Next, we're going to use our number 2 screwdriver to remove the screw holding the ground wire to the propulsion circuit board. Before removing the positive wire from the propulsion circuit board, remember to reinstall the ground screw to the terminal to prevent twisting and potentially damaging the circuit board. Now that we have the ground screw reinstalled, we can safely remove the positive wire from the circuit board without damaging it. Now with the power wires removed from the circuit board, we can let the nose cone rest with the wires still in place. Now we can use our 3/32 Allen key to remove the 4 Allen screws holding the circuit board to the motor. Now that the 4 Allen screws are out, we can use our needle nose pliers to remove the propulsion circuit board. To prevent damage to the propulsion circuit board, it is very important that you grab from the center contact port with your needle nose pliers. Now that the propulsion circuit board is out, we can remove the spacer along with the 3 thermal interface materials. Now to remove the skeg, gently tap with a rubber mallet to remove it off the bottom of the motor. Use the rubber mallet to tap the transducer out away from the motor towards the nose cone. Now to remove the brushless motor, we're going to totally pull the nose cone free, and then we are going to actually deploy the trolling motor and raise it up. Now that your power pole move is deployed, use your rubber mallet to tap the bottom edge on the shaft side of the motor. As you're tapping the motor free, make sure you're supporting the weight with your other hand to prevent it from falling. Alright, so in order to change out the navigation head, we are going to need to access the 7 brass screws that are running along the bottom here. For this video, I'm going to go ahead and raise it up so I can show you easier. Okay, now that we have all 7 brass screws removed from the bottom of the navigation head, we're going to go ahead and simply lift up. And you'll see it's just connected simply with this white connector. All you have to do is push the middle of the tab here, simply unplug. Alright, now that we have the navigation head removed and unclipped, go ahead and unplug the Lowrance transducer cable from your Lowrance unit if you are running the ZR with the built-in transducer. From here, you're going to push up on the transducer cable, removing the rubber plug from the wire, and push down on the wire to bring it around the clip as so. And then go ahead and pull it up and out. Now using your number 2 Phillips screwdriver, remove the 4 brass screws holding the mold over clamp in place. Now lift up on the mold over clamp and feed the wires through. Next, use your 9/64 Allen and ratchet to remove the 2 screws holding the navigation head clamp. Now that we have the 2 Allen screws removed, we're going to use our flathead screwdriver and pry the collar out of the shaft. Now the next step is to go ahead and pull up on the coil cable plug and remove it from the shaft. Okay, now we're going to lift up on the navigation base and feed the wire through. Now to remove the titanium shaft from your power pole move, push the lock bar forward and pull up. Now to remove the titanium shaft from your power pole move, release the shaft clamp lever and pull down, feeding the wire through. Now that is how you remove the titanium shaft from your power pole move. Now the first step in installing our new titanium shaft, if you have a transducer model, we are going to feed the transducer cable up and through the bottom of the die-cast steering motor housing. As you are installing the titanium shaft on your power pole move, be careful not to damage or bend the vent tube on the way in. Make sure it's lined up in the center of the hole. Now that we have the titanium shaft fed back through the steering housing on your power pole move, we are going to deploy the unit so we can reach the top of the titanium shaft to reattach the navigation head. Now we are going to put our navigation base back onto the titanium shaft, starting with our transducer wire if you guys have a transducer model, and feed it through like so. And it's going to rest on the top of the titanium shaft. Now we're going to take our navigation head clamp and line up the tab with the hole in the titanium shaft. You will actually feel the navigation clamp lock into place once it's pressed all the way forward, like so. Now that you have the clamp locked into place, go ahead and feed the socket head screws with the brass nylon nut on the back side and get them started with your fingers. So go ahead and push that through and put your nut on the back side. Remember to use your torque wrench and to tighten down to the listed torque specs that can be found in the instructions. Now insert the coil cable plug into the top of the titanium shaft. When pressing down on the coil cable plug, make sure that the vent tube is lined with the notch on the side of the plug. And if you have the transducer model, make sure your transducer cable is also lined up on the opposite side of the coil cable plug. Next, we are going to route the transducer cable through the mold over clamp. Now we are going to route our power connector through the same slot that our transducer cable is going through. And also the top of the vent tube is going to sit in this slot as well. Once we have it down, our screw holes will now be lined up. Now secure the mold over clamp by inserting your 4 brass screws, and these are going to be tightened to 7 inch-pounds. And make sure that you are using brass screws, as this will prevent any possible interference with the navigation. Now that the mold over clamp is secure, we can route our transducer cable through the bottom of the housing. Remember to reinstall the rubber plug, as this will help prevent moisture from getting into the navigation head. Also, make sure the transducer cable is routed on the side of the mold over clamp underneath of the retainer. Now we're ready to plug in the navigation head. So we're going to take our white connector here, line it up with the tabs. You actually hear it click once it's all the way in, just like that. Now the one thing you do want to note before you put this down, it's very important to watch how this wire is ran. There's a cradle here on the side, and we need to make sure that the tabs on this white connector are facing outward to the edge of the navigation head, just like this. It's going to sit nice and flush down in here, just like that. The front of the wire coming off here is going to lay in this middle slot. And on the back side of the cradle, this is very important. The back side of the wire, you need to use your finger and line up the wire into the cradle before you push it down. This is very important because if you run your brass screw through here, when we screw this back down and that wire is overlapping, we're going to damage the wire. So we need to be very careful that we use our finger and push down as we put this navigation head down, just like this, to avoid the screw going through the wire. All right, now we're ready to tighten back the brass screws with our number 2 Phillips screwdriver. All right, now remember, when we're tightening our 7 brass screws, we are going to be working in a star pattern to make sure everything seats evenly. Remember to use your torque wrench and to tighten down to the listed torque specs that can be found in the instructions. Now we are ready to install the brushless propulsion motor. Make sure that the 3 contact ports are facing downwards when lining up the tracks with your hand. Once you get the tracks started, use a rubber mallet to tap the motor all the way on. Now we are ready to install our transducer. Line up the tracks with the bottom of the propulsion motor. Start it with the end of the transducer cable going towards your other power cables coming out of the motor. And now gently tap with the rubber mallet on the closed end of the transducer. Make sure that the transducer is now flush with the edge of the propulsion motor. Now we are ready to install our skeg. Make sure that the flat edge is facing towards the motor shaft. Use your mallet to tap the edge of the skeg to where it is flush with the brushless motor. All right, now we're ready to install our spacer frame. Make sure that the actual spacers go into the holes around the contact ports. Now that we have the spacer frame in place, we can line up our 3 thermal interface materials. These 3 thermal interface materials are important to have in place as they will help protect the circuit board from any potential overheating issues. We can start the process of installing the new nose cone by feeding the wires through. Remember, when working with the transducer model, route the transducer cable through the bottom of the nose cone housing and pull the power wires through the middle of the nose cone housing. Now we are ready to install our propulsion circuit board. Line up your contact ports with the 3 holes that you see at the edge of the circuit board. Now we are ready to secure the propulsion circuit board. Remember to use your torque wrench and to tighten down to the listed torque specs that can be found in the instructions. Now we're ready to reconnect our power and ground wire to the propulsion circuit board. We still have the ground screw in place to prevent any twisting between the boards when we tighten them. Make sure before you put your screw on, you still have your lock washer in place. We are going to reconnect first the red positive wire to the propulsion circuit board. Now that we have our positive wire connected back to the propulsion circuit board, we can remove our ground screw that was holding the propulsion circuit board in place. Now with the ground screw free, we can use it to reattach the ground wire to the propulsion circuit board. With the wires snug to the propulsion circuit board, remember to use your torque wrench and to tighten down to the listed torque specs that can be found in the instructions. Now that the power wires have been reconnected, if you have the transducer model, go ahead and connect the transducer cable. Now with the wires reconnected, we're ready to reattach the nose cone. Before doing so, remember to apply silicone grease to the bushings. Now with the nose cone in place, we can reinstall our rear motor cap by aligning the 4 screws into the brushless motor. Make sure when installing the rear motor cap that the arrow is facing upwards towards the top of the power pole move. With the rear motor cap in place, tighten the 4 screws in a star pattern. As you do this, you'll notice the nose cone pull tight to the motor. During this process, make sure that the bushings are not being pinched as the nose cone is being pulled towards the motor. Now that we have the 4 screws snug with our Phillips screwdriver, we're going to go back over them with our torque wrench and make sure we're tightening in a star pattern. And our final step is to reinstall the prop. Make sure you line up the pin with the back slot on our prop here. Tighten with your 9/16 deep socket until there's no play in the prop. And that is how you replace the titanium shaft on your power pole move trolling motor. Thank you for watching.